Hello and welcome back to yet another video on the Alejandro Hernandez podcast. These are going to be my official picks for the Week 10 slate of the NFL season. As you guys can probably tell by the sound of my voice, I'm not feeling too good. I got sick recently, but because I couldn't get you guys Week 9 picks last week, I got to clutch up and give you guys Week 10 picks this week, and I will be delivering those picks to you guys now in this video. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. In this entire slate, it's a 14-game slate. I really had a hard time picking some upsets. There's a lot of teams that are favored big and then some small favorites, but the small favorites are really, really good teams that I'm confident will get the job done this weekend. And it's starting tonight on Thursday Night Football. The Denver Broncos are negative 9.5 point favorites at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. I expect them to win and cover. When you look at the Broncos offense, Bo Nix has been excellent in the fourth quarter and really bad the first three quarters. So if I want to be optimistic about Denver going forward this season, in my top 10, I had them as the 10th best team in the NFL. They're right around the outer edge of my top 10. They're either at the 11 or 12 spot or in the 8 to 10 spot range, and they're 7-2. And like I've said in my rankings, this is not the standings. So I'm really looking at Denver's quality of play, not their record. Yes, their record is 7-2. Yes, they're the number 2 seed in the AFC. But this iteration of Denver that I'm saying, the way that they're winning games is not sustainable in my opinion. You can't just play like ass for the first three quarters of the game and then wake up in the fourth quarter, because you're not going to get away with that when you play the Buffalo Bills, when you play the New England Patriots, when you play the Colts. You lost to the Colts. And then when you play the Chiefs, you're not going to get away with playing bad the first three quarters and then waking up in the fourth quarter like you have the first, I'd say the last 4 weeks of this season. So I definitely want to see a complete game out of Bo Nix this week, and I think we will see that because I believe Sean Payton's going to make it a point to exploit this weaker Raiders run defense with J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. I believe that's going to be the focal point of the offense tonight for Denver. And if they get J.K. Dobbins going on the ground, I believe he's going to have over 100 yards. And then off play action, they're going to hit the Cortland Suttons. You're going to hit the Evan Ingram, Troy Franklin, and you're also going to get R.J. Harvey involved in the receiving game. So I definitely want to see a complete offensive performance tonight from Denver, and I believe we are going to get that. And I believe on the other side of the ball with Geno Smith, I think that the Broncos defense is going to take advantage of his turnover-worthy plays. They're going to get some takeaways, get some sacks, as the Broncos defensive line is obviously among the best in football. They're one of the best, if not the best team at getting to the quarterback, and I believe they will tonight. So give me Denver to win and cover the spread, which is set at negative 8.5. All right, and now let's move on to the Sunday slate. We have a game in Berlin, the first Berlin game of the season. It's going to be between the Indianapolis Colts and the Atlanta Falcons. I like the Colts in this matchup to win and cover the spread, which is set at negative 6.5. Indianapolis had a letdown performance this week in Pittsburgh, and that was a tough matchup going up against that Steelers defense, and that defense was able to expose Daniel Jones and his weaknesses. But what I failed to mention in my top 10 video was how the Steelers effectively stopped Jonathan Taylor, and they took him out of the game. The Steelers, their focal point was to take away Jonathan Taylor first and then make Daniel Jones beat you. And they were able to do that successfully. And they've been one of the few teams to be able to do that successfully, if not the only team, because this Colts team was putting up ridiculous offensive numbers. And I expect them to get back to doing that this week against the Falcons defense. I think that the Falcons have just been on a downward trajectory ever since they beat the Bills on Monday Night Football. They've lost 4 straight games. They have not looked good at any point of this season apart from the beginning. And these last 4 weeks, I believe they lost 3 straight, not 4. They've lost 3 straight games. And in this 3-game losing streak, they just have not looked good. And I believe the majority of the blame has to go on Michael Penix. He has not lived up to the first round pick hype potential that he was drafted to be. He was drafted as the 8th overall pick in the draft. And right now, in my opinion, if I had to rank the 2024 quarterback class, I think Michael Penix would be at my number 5 spot out of the 5 quarterbacks drafted. He has not performed well, given the weapons he has surrounded around him. He has Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and Bijan. And I think he's not maximizing the potential of this offense. And when you look at the other side of the football, this Falcons defense has regressed. They gave up 24 to New England last week. They gave up 20 to San Francisco. And then the week before that, they gave up 34 points and 4 touchdowns to Tua. So this Falcons defense has regressed recently, and I believe it's due to injuries, and they haven't really got much healthier. So I like the Colts in this matchup. I think they're going to get back to establishing Jonathan Taylor. It's going to be a positive game script for the Colts, which means Taylor gets going. And on the other side of the ball, I believe Bijan struggles to get going. And the Colts also recently acquired Sauce Gardner, which I forgot to mention in my top 10 video, but now they're going to have Sauce matching up against Drake London one-on-one, and I believe that that is a good matchup for the Colts. So overall, I like the Colts in this matchup. Give me them to win and cover the spread, which is at negative 6.5. All right, and now for the 1 p.m. slate. The first game is going to be the Chicago Bears versus my New York Giants. I like the Bears in this spot to win and cover the spread, which is set at negative 4.5. I thought about picking the Giants as an upset in this spot, but then I remembered that our defensive coordinator is Shane Bowen and the Bears head coach is Ben Johnson, and those matchups are just advantage Bears all the way. Ben Johnson has been excellent so far this year as the Bears head coach. He's turned this offensive around. Caleb Williams has cut his sacks in half from last season. They're getting the run game going, which they didn't have last year. DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai have been excellent so far this year. They're going to have both those guys healthy. I think the Bears run all over our defense. And right now, I just think the Giants team, I think Dable's slowly starting to lose the locker room. And it sucks because we've had key injuries. And our offense and our defense. On the offensive side, we've obviously lost Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo. That's been a huge hit to our offense. And Jackson Dart has still done the most when he's given nothing to work with. He really has Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton to work with and Theo Johnson, but really those guys are just not reliable receivers. They've been dropping passes left and right, and I think you need more to be able to compete with that. Those offensive skill position players are not enough to compete for this year at least. We are going to get those guys back next season. So honestly, as a Giants fan, I just want to sim to next season already. I'm tired of watching this team play on Sundays. They've been letting me down week after week, and it's discouraging. It's really discouraging, and I'm honestly not sure if Dable should keep his job at this point because every year since 2022, we've started 2-7. Every single season for 3 years straight, we've started 2-7. There's really been no progression really overall in the roster, and there's no denying that the roster's talented, but we just haven't been able to translate that talent to wins, and it sucks, and I believe that's on the coaches. So with that being said, I like the Bears to cover because right now I think the Giants' trajectory this season is just going downhill. I think this game could get ugly in favor of Chicago. I think Caleb Williams, Kyle Monangai, DeAndre Swift, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Colson Loveland, the list goes on of all the Bears playmakers. I think they have a field day on our defense, and Jackson Dart is not able to keep up. So with that being said, give me the Bears to win and cover the spread, which is set at -4.5. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. I like the Bills to win and cover in this spot. I think the Bills are back officially to being the juggernaut of the AFC and of the NFL entirely. I think they take care of business in Miami this week. This Dolphins team pretty much quit on Thursday Night Football last week against the Ravens, and the Dolphins recently have been playing Buffalo close, but I think this iteration of Miami is just no match for Buffalo. I believe the Bills figured some things out in that Kansas City matchup defensively. The addition of I'd say the addition of Maxwell Harrison, because he hadn't played the start of the season, but he was their first round draft pick. Having him back and inserted into the lineup has been a huge game changer for this defense because they were able to play more man coverage. They were able to get pressure on the opposing team's quarterback, and if they're able to do that this week against Miami, they can match up Maxwell Harrison one-on-one against Jalen Waddle, and if he can shadow him the same way he shadowed Xavier Worthy, then the Bills are going to have a lot of success defensively, and I believe their game plan should be to contain and to follow Devon Achane everywhere he goes in the field. And if they neutralize Achane and Jalen Waddle like I believe they will, then this game is going to get ugly quick because the Miami defense has no hope of stopping Josh Allen and that Buffalo offense and James Cook. So with that being said, I like the Bills to win via blowout in Miami. I think this Miami team has quit. They quit last week on Thursday Night Football against the Ravens, and I expect the Bills to make them quit once again at home. This is a huge number. I don't mind laying the points. Give me the Bills to win and cover. The spread is set at -9.5. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens at the Minnesota Vikings. I like the Ravens in this spot to win and cover. The spread is set at -4.5. I think that the market right now is not fully aware of how back the Ravens really are. I have a lot of respect for Baltimore now than I did a few weeks ago, and not even because Lamar Jackson is back, but because of the way the defense has turned things around. And everyone's focused on, Lamar's health. What about the defense's health? They finally got Roquan Smith back. They got a few guys back in the secondary and the defensive line. So now when they're piecing those guys back together in the same lineup, this Baltimore defense has massively improved. The past 3 games, they held the Rams at home to 17 points in that high-flying offense. They held the Bears to 16 points, and they just hung 47 in Cincinnati. They held them to 16 points, and then the week after that, they held Miami to 6. So this Baltimore defense has responded positively, and this Ravens team is now bound to make a run back into contention for the AFC North title. They're 3-5, and the Steelers are 5-3. They have to catch up to them. This game is very, very important, and I'm sure they're not overlooking Minnesota, but I just think the Ravens are flat out better, and I think Lamar Jackson is way, way better than J.J. McCarthy right now at this point in their careers. So I like the Ravens in this spot to win and cover. I think that J.J. McCarthy will struggle against this Baltimore defense. They're going to cause him some problems, and I think the Ravens will play from ahead with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson running the football effectively. I like the Ravens to dominate this matchup. Give me them to win by multiple scores. I'd say 27-17 in favor of Baltimore and Minnesota. I like them to win and cover the spread. And now for the next game, it's probably the stinkiest game of the entire season. I bet you nobody is really going to tune into this game unless they're fans of their own team. It's the New York Jets versus the Cleveland Browns in New York. And the Browns are favored -2.5, and I think they should be. I believe they have the better defense and the better run game. However, I am going to be picking the Jets to get the upset in this spot. Despite their fire sale, getting rid of Quinnen Williams, getting rid of Sauce Gardner, I think that this team, the market overall, is I believe overreacting to the Jets doing their fire sale, and everyone's kind of thinking, well, the Jets kind of threw in the towel on their season, and then they're going to come out in this game and play very, very good. So I like the Jets in this spot. I like Justin Fields over Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel in his like 4 or 5 starts with the Browns has been horrible, just flat out horrible. He's not looked good at all. And although the Jets did lose Sauce Gardner in their secondary, they still have some young, bright talent in their secondary. They have the rookie out of, I believe, Florida State, Azariah Thomas. He's played well. They have a guy named Brown Lee in the secondary who's also been playing good football. So I believe Aaron Glenn has kind of got this locker room to buy in and be competitive in games. They just had a huge comeback win in Cincinnati, and I think they're going to ride that momentum into this week and get a home win. They're getting Justin Fields back. They're getting Garrett Wilson back. They still have their trio in Fields, Breece Hall, and Garrett Wilson. They're going to have them all healthy in this game, and I think that is going to be enough to beat Dylan Gabriel and the Browns. So give me the Jets to win. I'm not very confident in the pick. However, I just trust Justin Fields over Dylan Gabriel right now because I believe right now currently Dylan Gabriel is the worst starter in the National Football League, and I believe this game will shine light and finally give Shedeur Sanders his opportunity to start. If this game doesn't wake up Kevin Stefanski and make him say, damn, I should probably make a change at quarterback because Dylan Gabriel's not cutting it, then I think the only explanation is he flat out just hates Shedeur. And we're going to see what happens. I believe Dylan Gabriel is going to shit the bed in this game. And if he does, then that'll be good for Shedeur. And on the other side of the ball, I expect Justin Fields to make less mistakes than Dylan Gabriel. So that's why I like the Jets. Now let's shift gears to a way more competitive game with actual good teams. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the New England Patriots. And this is a really good matchup. This is a very intriguing matchup. You have two potential MVP candidates in this game in Drake May and Baker Mayfield. Both have been playing at an extremely high level this season. And I think that the Patriots hype is real. It's real, and everyone's joining the bandwagon. Everyone is, oh, the Patriots are going to be the 1 seed. The Patriots are going to win the division. Drake May is a top 5 quarterback. And I believe that everyone has forgotten how good Tampa is. Everyone has kind of chilled out on the Baker Mayfield MVP talk since that Detroit game. But I also believe that Baker Mayfield was more banged up than he was letting on people to believe. I think that the bye week was the timing of the bye week was very, very crucial for Tampa. They're getting Emeka Ibuka fully healed with his hamstring. They're potentially getting Bucky Irving back. They're getting Chris Godwin back. They're getting their offensive weapons back, who Baker Mayfield has had to operate without. And now they're going to have their full arsenal without Mike Evans. But I still think that Emeka is great. I believe Chris Godwin fully healthy should be good. And Bucky Irving is obviously a great running back. So with those weapons back and Baker finally healed up, I think this Tampa team is going to get back to winning football games in thrilling fashion. I think this is the spot they do it in against the Patriots. They are favored -2.5. I like them as favorites to win this game and cover the spread. I trust Baker to outplay Drake May in this game. And especially because the game is in Tampa, I don't think this young New England team is prepared to go into Tampa Bay and win a road game of this magnitude. So I like the Bucs in the spot. They're the more experienced team. Baker Mayfield is the more experienced quarterback, and that's why I like the Bucs to win this matchup at home against the Patriots. Give me the Bucs to win and cover the spread, which is set at -2.5. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Carolina Panthers at home against the New Orleans Saints. I actually like the Panthers in this matchup to win and cover the spread, which is set at -5.5. The Panthers, I don't think have been this big of favorites in probably 4 or 5 years. It's been a while since they've been a good football team, but they're finally there. They're 5-4. They're in contention to be in the NFC playoffs. And Bryce Young, it hasn't really been... The Panthers, I think, are winning in spite of Bryce Young's play right now. They're doing it on the back of Rico Dowdle and good defensive football. They held the Packers to 13 points last week, and I believe they're going to have success again this week playing Tyler Shuck, who right now is probably one of the bottom 3 starting quarterbacks in the league. In his playing time against Tampa, he didn't look very good. In his playing time against the Rams, he didn't look very good. That's going to take some time to develop. If it even does develop into something, I doubt it will. But in this matchup, I like the Panthers defense to get after Tyler Shuck, get probably 5+ sacks in this game, probably force a couple takeaways. And on the other side of the ball, I think the Panthers will lean on Rico Dowdle, probably give him 20+ carries, get Chuba involved in the receiving game, and they'll probably get Teteroa McMillan his targets, and I think they'll coast to victory in this one as long as Bryce Young continues to play mistake-free football. The Panthers have I'd say a way of winning, and that is to lean on the run game and play good defense, and they're going to do that this week at home. I expect them to do that, and they should win and cover the spread, which is set at -5.5. Now, for the next game, it's going to be the Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. In this spot, I actually like Jacksonville to win the game. I was very close to picking the Texans to win, even with their backup quarterback in Davis Mills, because CJ Stroud is out with a concussion. However, if I'm going to be high on Jacksonville like I was in the preseason and pick them to win the AFC South, this is a game I should expect them to win. And I believe they're slight favorites in this game. Houston's plus 100. I believe they're like -125. And that line is a little fishy because the past 3 weeks, the Texans, there's been so many weird lines and so many weird games. They were slight favorites against the Niners, and I didn't understand it, and then they end up beating the Niners. And then this past week, I had picked the Texans to beat Denver, and then Denver wins in a walk-off field goal. These Texans games have been pick-ems, but I do expect Jacksonville to edge out the Texans because overall, I'd hope that Trevor Lawrence could outplay Davis Mills in this game. However, the Texans defense is very good, and the last game was very, very close between these two teams, and it was a very defensive game. And the Jaguars were able to win because of the turnovers they forced in the Texans offense, and I believe they're going to do that again this week with Davis Mills. I think they're capable of creating turnovers on Davis Mills, getting some sacks, getting some interceptions, and I believe that Trevor Lawrence and the Jags offense should be able to cash that in. And coming off the bye week, despite the poor play of Brian Thomas Jr., they still put up 30 points on the Raiders. So I think that Liam Cohen has this team gelling, has this team playing well even without Travis Hunter. They went out and addressed the wide receiver position, which I think they should have at the trade deadline, acquiring Jacoby Myers. I believe he's going to make an impact in this game. That was a smart move by the general manager to get help in that receiver room. They have Brian Thomas, Jacoby Myers, and Parker Washington. Those are decent weapons for Trevor Lawrence to operate with, and I expect him to play good enough to win this game for Jacksonville. I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be low scoring and close, but give me the Jags to edge out the Texans in Houston and improve to 6-3. All right, now for the 405 and 425 slate, the first game we got is the Seattle Seahawks at home against the Arizona Cardinals. I like the Seahawks to win and cover the spread, which is set at -6.5. I think the Seahawks team now is finally getting the recognition that it deserved. I had them as a sneaky playoff team, sneaking into the playoffs as the number 7 seed. They've actually exceeded those expectations I had for them. Not many people had them in the playoffs because everyone had questions about Sam Darnold. Well, right now, currently Sam Darnold is playing like a top 5 quarterback in the league right now. And I emphasize playing because I don't believe he is a top 5 quarterback, but he is operating Clint Kubiak's system right now to the highest of capabilities, and they are maximizing the potential of Jackson Smith and Jigba. And right now, the Seattle team is a machine, and yes, all the attention is going to JSN and Sam Darnold's connection, but everyone is not even acknowledging how underrated the Seattle defense is. Right now, they are a top 5 unit in the NFL when it comes to points per game, yards allowed, pretty much all the metrics that you can think of defensively. The Seahawks are in the top 5, top 10. And their defense is great, and that's credit to Mike McDonald. And I think it's been complimentary football for Seattle. They're playing at an extremely high level. The Cardinals, however, just got a huge win on Monday Night Football against the Cowboys, and they're coming off a short week. It was Monday Night Football for the Cardinals. The Seahawks played on Sunday Night Football. So the Seahawks do have extra rest. The game is in Seattle. I favor the Seahawks in this matchup because I think their defense is going to, I believe, create some turnovers on Jacoby Brissett and kind of bring him back down to earth because he has been playing at a very high level against some good teams. However, I think this week he runs into a roadblock against this very good Seattle defense. I think they get pressure on him, create some sacks, some turnovers, and on the other side of the ball, Sam Darnold and JSN continue their dominance. And I think the Seahawks will win this game comfortably, giving them to win by 2 touchdowns, 31-17. Now, for the next game, it's going to be a big divisional matchup between the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. And in this spot, I like the Rams to win, but the Niners to cover the spread, which is set at +5.5. I think this is a type of game that ends in a walk-off field goal. I think these teams are that closely matched. And despite all the Niners' injuries, the coaching has been outstanding on both sides of the ball, with Kyle Shanahan coaching the offense and Robert Saleh coaching the defense. They've done an outstanding job. And I think Kyle Shanahan deserves Coach of the Year. Even if the Niners don't have the best record in all of football, just the job he's done given all the injuries they've had and sustained has been incredible. And given that all those injuries have happened and they're still 6-3 is insane. And in this particular spot, I think the Rams do respond, given that they did lose to the Niners on Thursday Night Football as huge favorites. I think they will have more respect for the Niners this time around. I think Stafford continues to play at a very high level, and Mac Jones is also able to put up points in this Rams defense. I think it's a good matchup for both offenses. I think it's a high-scoring game, but this time around, I think the Rams get the better of the Niners. I don't see a possibility that the Niners are able to sweep the Rams, and I think the Rams are one of the best teams in the NFL and a top 2 seed in the NFC currently. So I think that they need to win this matchup. They're going to come out with desperation, and they're going to come out hot. I think the Rams get the job done on the road in San Francisco. It's a very tough ask, but I think that this team is capable of doing that, especially if I have them going to the Super Bowl. I have to have faith in them that they are able to go into San Francisco and get a huge win on the road, and I expect them to do that. But I do believe it will be a close game, which is why I have the Niners covering the spread. So with that being said, give me the Rams to win, but the Niners to cover the plus 5.5 line. And for the next game, it's going to be the Detroit Lions versus the Washington Commanders. The spread is set at negative 8.5. I like the Lions to win and cover. I think it's just very unfortunate what's happened to the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels might be RG3 all over again with all the injuries he's sustained so far this year. I think he's had 4 different major injuries in his career so far in the NFL. I wouldn't say major. Some of them were minor, but this particular one was the worst one, the dislocated elbow. That is just devastating. And I think they have no hope in this matchup against the Lions, especially because the Lions are coming off a loss. And the Lions are one of the best teams in the entire NFL coming off a loss. I think they're going to come out and absolutely want to kill Washington. And I think it's going to be a huge game for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And just the whole Lions offense, I think, is going to have a party in the end zone. And the Washington defense has been horrible this year. They just lost Marshawn Lattimore for the rest of the season with a torn ACL. So just things go from bad to worse for Washington, and the Lions are desperate for this win for NFC standings. They want to be among the top seeds in the NFC, and to do that, they need to take care of business against the inferior opponents, and I believe they do that this week against the Commanders. So I think the Lions probably put up 40-plus points in this game. I think the mismatch is just insane. With the Lions offense versus the Commanders defense, I think the Commanders stand no chance. So I love the Lions to win by blowout this weekend. Give me them to win and cover the spread, which is set at negative 8.5. Now for Sunday Night Football, it's going to be the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Chargers are slight favorites in this game. They're favored negative 2.5. I like the Chargers to win and cover the spread. 2 weeks ago, I put my faith in Pittsburgh to upset the Packers. That didn't go very well. It went great for the first half. They were up 16-7. I was thinking to myself, like, wow, like the Steelers are actually going to get this done. And then it just went to complete hell in the second half. The Packers put up 28 points in the second half, completely blew them out. And now in this spot, I do like the Chargers because I think Justin Herbert's simply going to put his team on his back the way he has done the entire season. And in this spot, they're without Joe Alt. And I think that's the main reason why you would pick Pittsburgh and why you would favor Pittsburgh, because of that pass rush against that Chargers offensive line. However, in this spot, the Chargers do have all their weapons healthy. They have Oronde Gadsden, they have Keenan Allen, they have Quentin Johnson and Ladd McConkey. I think Justin Herbert's just going to air it out in this game. I think he's going to have over 300 yards passing the same way Jordan Love did, probably have over 2 or 3 touchdowns, and they're just going to outscore the Steelers. The Steelers' path to victory right now is low scoring and Aaron Rodgers simply just taking care of the football and making good decisions. However, in this spot, I just think the Chargers are going to outscore the Steelers offense, and I think Justin Herbert will not make the game-losing mistake in this game the same way that Daniel Jones is making the game-losing mistakes in the previous week. I think Herbert takes care of the football. I think that the Chargers put up a lot of points, and the Aaron Rodgers-led Steelers offense is not explosive and will not be able to keep up with the high-scoring Chargers offense. So with that being said, that's why I like the Chargers to win and cover the spread, which is at negative 2.5 at home on Sunday Night Football. And now for the final game, it's going to be Monday Night Football between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. And I like the Eagles to get the win in this spot. They are slight underdogs in this game, which is actually kind of surprising to me because I think Philadelphia is just a better team overall. They proved they were the better team in the playoffs last year, and I believe they're going to win this game decisively once again. And even though the game is in Lambeau Field, I just trust that the Eagles coming off a bye week are going to be prepared, and I think their offense is going to give this Green Bay Packers defense some trouble, especially in the pass game. I think A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are due for a big performance. A.J. Brown is fully healthy now, coming back from that hamstring injury. He should be back fully healthy. And last year, Saquon Barkley, both in the regular season and the playoffs, torched this Packers defense, and I expect him to do it again. I think this Eagles offense is just going to be firing on all cylinders. And on the defensive side of the ball, Howie Roseman went out at the trade deadline and acquired some pieces in Jair Alexander, and on the defensive line with Jalen Phillips. And I think those guys are going to make an impact in this game. Philadelphia has improved defensively over the past couple of weeks, and they're just playing better complementary football than they were the previous weeks. So I like Philadelphia coming off the bye week to get off to a fast start in this game and take control of the game in Green Bay and win it decidedly. So give me the Eagles to win in Lambeau Field, and that is going to be it for this week's picks. And I will see you guys next week for when I release my top 10 teams in the NFL after week 10.